the thing, like maybe bikes should be less sexy.
Your bike is like a toaster oven, people. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of BikesxBourbon. I'm Russ from Path Less Pedaled.
And I'm Toffer, this week's Irish whiskey dilettante.
In this episode, we've completely failed the bourbon, and we're going to be drinking Irish whiskeys. And we're also going to be talking about the Lauf fork, or is it Laugh fork?
They kind of make me laugh, so.
Yeah, it's a very confusing name. Then we're going to talk about bikes built in Taiwan, an article that was on bikepacking.com. And lastly, we're going to talk about marketing bike travel, mountain biking. Has it become too epic?
What's your epic ride?
I know.
What epic trip have you planned?
Yeah.
You're failing if you don't have an epic trip. Start off with Redbreast. Redbreast, it's an Irish whiskey, aged 12 years. Redbreast 12. I'll do the pour. I like it when I pour. I feel like I do a little bit heavier.
Toffer pours generously. So Irish whiskey, not a bourbon, completely different.
Right. Not Scotch.
Not Scotch either.
No.
If you're just getting into whiskey, I think Irish whiskey is a cool place to start because it's all really like gentle, really approachable, smooth.
Yeah, I think you often hear buttery, you know, so for that, I don't know, that kind of savory palate, it kind of ticks some boxes, but also there's some sweetness, there's some light.
So this on the nose, I'm getting a little bit of a butteriness, but that really light sweetness you were talking about. But it's not like a bourbon sweetness where it's like super obvious.
Right.
It's kind of just, I don't know, just like this wafting sense of sweetness.
Like Redbreast, and then we're gonna be having some Green Spot later on, and both of those to me, there's a lightness to them, but there's also a complexity. So there's like some different layers going on. I think the finish of these, it's like on the nose, the taste and the finish are all kind of different things. So they're always you're always getting a different note depending on where you are. It's nice to sip, I find, kind of sitting around, you know, checking out, surfing the web, looking up different bike blogs.
It's a good bike blog reading whiskey.
Yeah, it's nice to have this kind of next to you.
I think on the palate for me, like, it's almost like popcorn butter, you know, just like this really smooth, kind of like maybe slightly viscous on the tongue, but just really approachable and nice to drink.
This one, I don't know though if these would be flask, like bike ride flask. I think these are too, is it delicate maybe?
They are too delicate.
You want to maybe sit with them at home and enjoy them. They're not maybe like something you're just gonna like take a swig of.
Yeah, it's perfect for watching BikesX Irish whiskey. But moving on to bikes, we're going to talk about a Bike Rumor article where they're reviewing the Lauf forks. And if you guys aren't familiar with them, they're basically a carbon fiber fork. I think they're made in Iceland, and they get their suspension through like these weird looking like carbon leaf springs.
Yeah, they've refined the design. They look really nice now, especially on this new True Grit bike that they just released. There's like the fork and the frame are painted the same color, and then kind of the suspension element is black. So it kind of blends in. It's not as obvious.
It's not like a bike and then this weird ass fork in the front.
Right. Which I think sometimes the other, like the first gen forks, kind of people were like, I don't know, that looks kind of strange.
Yeah, I think it still looks kind of strange. It looks less offensive, I think, than the Cannondale Slate. Yeah, the review was interesting. Even on like super rough washboard roads, it didn't fare as well.
Right.
You know. It's an interesting design. I can totally see the advantages. You know, it's a little bit more maintenance free than having a hydraulic or a fork with air shocks or hydraulics in there.
Right. And then also like sometimes you don't want to maybe take like a full, or not a full suspension, but just like a suspension bike out on a gravel ride.
Yeah, like because it's overkill. It's over biking.
You are over biking, and so I could see that. I mean, definitely for comfort, and that's what, you know, one of the things they were talking about. I think one of the things that for me kind of came out in the review was the line between, you know, the fork having suspension on it and, you know, how much could you load this bike down? Right. Especially, you know, they were saying the front end, you know, obviously because the weight. There's
stuff there.
The weight,
yeah, so the guy in the review, he was actually bike packing, or he had like the Salsa Anything cradle. Yeah. So that kind of it was probably a different experience than if you were riding it for like an event ride.
Right. I mean, I think that it would be, to me, you know, if you wanted to have some type of like small saddle bag, like some half frame bag, and maybe like a top tube bag, this bike would work really great for that type of
Yeah.
all-day gravel event, or just you're going out for a ride and you want to be able to pack some stuff, but you're still looking to maybe ride kind of fast.
Yeah.
And you want to have a bike that can feel good riding fast. It seems
Yeah.
like this is good, but then it seems like you're reaching a limit. You're reaching kind of a point where like you don't want to take this bike.
Yeah, it's not the best for like a super long, rugged like bike packing trip. I mean, you could do it. It's just that that probably wouldn't be the optimal use. Because like from what he was saying in the review is like the fork itself adds some weight.
Yeah.
Like I think about 400 grams, and it makes the front end a little bit front heavy. And if you do start carrying like a front load, it kind of pre-actuates the leaf springs.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting thing, because it's like you can't tune it,
Yeah,
so like depending on rider weight and your load, it's going to change how it feels for you.
Right. So, I mean, it's an interesting option. It's cool.
Would you buy
see.
one?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I have bikes in the stable that could already do what this bike is meant to do. But it's interesting to see companies, I mean, especially these forks, to design like a bike around a fork, which I think usually it's kind of the opposite, right? Usually you have like a bike and then you're like, well, I want some suspension, and then you go out and after, you go and you find like a Fox or a RockShox and you like stick that on there and you're good to go. And so it's interesting to see like a bike company kind of thinking, okay, we want comfort. Maybe, rider comfort is important to us. So how can we design a kind of a bike around a fork so that there's kind of maximizing comfort? In Montana here, we have a lot of like rocky, like our like dirt roads, our gravel roads are like, they're big rocks.
Yeah, baby
like,
heads.
Yeah, and so I feel like having like a little bit of suspension could be nice on a bike.
Yeah, for sure.
That where maybe if you were dealing with like the type of gravel that I was more familiar with in the Midwest, which is kind of like sink into it, and it's like, it's like this. It's laid down by like the county each year, every few years.
That is an interesting point. Like I think gravel in the Midwest, where a lot of these gravel events happen, it's completely different from the stuff that we have in the Northwest here.
Right.
And it's interesting that like maybe the early kind of run of gravel bikes were optimized for that Midwest gravel, but didn't take into account like the terrain out here. Because I remember like the early gravel tires were like, 28's plenty, or like 33. It's like, really? Like not out here.
Yeah, they're trying to convince you that like cyclocross tires that were kind of already available would be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that as that's grown and as people are trying to like, oh yeah, I want to do that. It's like, well, the gravel roads, depending on where you are, like what gravel means.
Right, for sure.
Varies, and so I think that, giving people an option with a little bit more suspension.
The question is, if you had something like a low fork and some Compass tires, would it be like exponentially supple? Would it be like the supple life combo?
Yeah, I think that I think if you're looking for,
I think mine would be blown. It would just be.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like one of those things where I think it's all beneficial. I love to see that. I think that it could be. There's no such thing as too supple.
That's true. Last thoughts on the Redbreast?
Yeah.
I think if you want to.
I just got like a huge maple.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was.
There is a little bit more sweetness coming out now that you say it.
But that's like what I think about Irish whiskey, is that it does have a slight. Some people say buttery biscuit, short cake. It kind of has like a pancakey.
After drinking like a proper Irish whiskey, then I totally get Irish coffee now. Like I wouldn't put like any like whiskey, any whiskey into a coffee, but like something like this, I feel like that creaminess would like work into like actual coffee flavors.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
Like I wouldn't put a bourbon into a coffee and call it Irish whiskey. That would just be gross.
Would you pair like with a coffee? Would that be like something lighter?
No, I'd do this. This is good.
No, but like what coffee would you go with? Like a light, like something.
Something with some body and mouthfeel. So probably not something too citrusy. So I'd say like maybe a Guatemalan or a Colombian.
I'm gonna see if I can get Russ to talk coffee now.
Because like Ethiopian would be like way too bright, and this would like conflict with that brightness.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like would there be some?
Yeah. So let's switch whiskeys and
refilled if he wants to get refilled.
Yeah. And please. We've got some reader comments. So B Atencio 4, oh no, that's B Atencio 4 days ago. B Atencio commented that
It's hard to tell.
Willie's Distillery, if you guys remember from the last episode, we actually drank one of their bourbons. Willie's Distillery in Ennis is good people. They let bicycle tourists camp out back for free, or at least they did when I was riding through in July 2015. So I think that's super cool. It's another cool like whiskey / bike relationship, you'd say.
Definitely.
So not only do they make good bourbon out in Ennis, but they're also bike friendly. So go figure.
That's awesome. That's cool to hear.
So JRR says BikesxBourbon in Kansas. Just about all the video I need in my life. Thanks for the great content. It makes life more supple.
Yes. That's what we try to do.
That's what
Smooth out the road a little bit.
Yeah.
It's rocky out there.
Not unlike a low fork, but more fun and less expensive.
So we are moving on to the green spot here.
It's strange. I'm actually getting like some really like subtle like apple notes on the nose, which is strange, which I wasn't getting before. I don't know if it's like the suggestiveness of the green spot. I'm thinking green apple, but all of a sudden like just popped up in my head.
Their marketing has worked.
Yeah. I feel like this is a little bit thicker than the Redbreast.
Yeah.
And there's some other like flavors going on, like maybe a little bit of tartness with the butteriness, which is kind of like this interesting, flavor party in your mouth.
Yeah, it's interesting after going from the Redbreast to this.
The best way to describe it is like if you got like a biscuit from like KFC, it just licked the side of it. It's like slightly salty, slightly savory, but mostly buttery and like textured.
I'm trying to recall the last time.
What was the last time you went to KFC?
I had a KFC biscuit.
So Topper is vegan, by the way. So he probably does not frequent.
Been a while.
Yeah, he does not frequent the Colonel's house very often.
There was a time when I appreciated his biscuits, but yeah, a little bit more complex though. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
Like the Redbreast seems simple now. Like I thought, like when I was drinking the Redbreast, I was like, oh, this is really great, and it has kind of these different layers to it. This green spot is making it seem.
Yeah, there's
not like it's like not as. I mean, they're both like really great, and I enjoy.
Well, I think like the main difference for me is like the Redbreast was like overwhelmingly smooth in texture, and in the green spot it's smooth, but then there's also like some other things contrasting it, and like in that contrast there's some interestingness going on. So what are we talking about next?
There was an article on bikepacking.com that a frame builder, he got his start in Fort Collins, being in Fort Collins and kind of just, I think that Colorado Front Range, there's a lot of cool bike builders going on out there. Show favorite Adam Sklar is from there, though he builds in Bozeman, but like there's Black Sheep.
And he used to build for Black Sheep, right?
Yeah, so I think, so he went to China to kind of learn about what they were doing over there, because a lot of manufacturing happens in China and Taiwan, and he saw that it was not as, maybe kind of the story is more complicated than we think of when you think about, made in China, made in Taiwan. You see that on a Surly, you see that on an All City, Specialized. I mean, any like huge bike brand has their bikes made overseas now.
Right.
Wasn't always the case, and so I think there's some different competing thoughts about the value of that. And this article, I think, just shines an interesting light on the work that's being done in Taiwan.
Like for me, the article was about kind of the misconception that all bikes made in Asia were terrible. That there's like a range of production skill. Right. Like yes, you get your kind of mass-produced crappy aluminum, department store bikes made there, but there's also some really well-made bikes. Right. So you can't kind of just put a blanket statement and say all bikes made in Taiwan, all bikes made in China, are crappy. Appreciated that like the story is a little bit more complex. And my favorite vignette is when he visited a factory in Taiwan, and he showed a bike that he had brazed to a guy at the factory that he would eventually work with to build a production run. Right. And the guy at the factory was like, "Oh, that's nice." And then and then he invited him to weld with him. Yeah. And like he was totally blown away with that guy's like welding or brazing skill.
I think part of it that like resonated with me is the idea of like when you do something a bunch and you care about what you're doing, you're gonna like refine your craft, and
you're gonna be fast.
And you're gonna be fast, and you're gonna like, be able to hone in, and it's like
it seemed like he was totally blown away by the handful of people that were welding they'd done a lot of bikes, so they had their system dialed, and they're like cranking them out without like even moving from their chair, where he had to like get up and kind of stretch out. His body wasn't accustomed to that kind of work.
Right.
So
yeah, and this is like this factory that he goes to. There's just like a few people that were building bikes, but they could just like
crank them out.
They had each had their parts. There was like very little communication, just because they had done the process so many times.
They were pros.
So
they weren't like some kind of fly-by-night artisanal builder that was kind of like maybe dipping their toes in it. Like this is like for them, it was work, it was production.
Right. There was one guy, like I think Senior Master.
Yeah.
That's what the translator told him his name was, and he had been building bikes since he was 14, and he was like close to 70.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's a lot of effing bikes.
You've been doing it for 60 years. Like, you're gonna.
Yeah. He's had way more than those 10,000 hours of mastery that you need to get good at something.
Yes. Yeah. For me, it was cool to see just the idea of like where you can learn from different, just being open to like what you can learn from different people. So it's like just that type of curiosity about bikes, about the bike world, really shines through in this article, where he allows himself to be humbled and not go to this place being like, oh, I make bikes and people pay me money to like make bikes. And so he goes and he's willing to like listen and hear what might be different. And so
I totally appreciate that part. I feel like in some ways we kind of tend to fetishize like the lone artisanal frame builder that makes like a small batch of frames, which is cool. I mean, they're beautiful bikes, but when you compare that to people that like have done it for years, like day in, day out, there's like a different, like they need the same due respect, I think.
Yeah, and it makes you.
I mean, their bikes aren't going to be at NABS, but they're just as like skillful like bike builders.
Hearing his point of view, it'd be interesting to see like what some of the conversations are like at these companies, because it seems the bike builders over there like in Taiwan, know a lot about like what works building a bike. I just think that it's just another interesting perspective. It provides kind of some complexity to the stories of made in the USA.
Since we're going to talk about epicness, should we move to like something like epically epic?
I don't know. Maybe we need something to ground us. Maybe
I was thinking
something
like
smooth and buttery to make me feel comfortable.
I was thinking the Highland Park, because it would be like a punch in the face if you're ready to go there.
Yeah, I'll bring you to the Highland Park.
Okay.
I don't know if
all right.
Go that route, but I'll just pour you a heavy.
I just want to a little bit more than that.
Oh.
So we're going to switch gears to not a specific article, but just a thought experiment.
I feel like this is like a few years ago that kind of the epicness started to like bubble up, and I just feel like now we're in full on. Every bike video is shot someplace exotic,
drone footage, heli tours.
Yeah, there's like drones. There's like multiple cameras. Like who knows how many like the film crew that's there to help capture this.
In some ways, it's almost always been there though. Like presenting bicycles as almost like an extreme sport. And even like bike touring these days is, like when I got into it, it was like the realm of like nerds. But now it's like, packing as little as possible, going as remote as possible, pushing, carrying your bike over as many rivers as possible. I mean, I get why brands do it. They want to be aspirational, but I think at a certain point, it pushes it beyond the realm of something that the person could feasibly do to something that doesn't even make sense.
It's a tough thing because you want those things to like inspire you and push you to like think about bikes in a new way or travel in a new way, but then at the same time it's hard to like wrap your brain around, which is good. I mean, like we need those trips, but I also don't know if they should be given the space that they've been given, because I think that there's something to be said for finding trips, rides, things that are like in your backyard and that
you can actually do.
You can actually do them, and you can do them more often.
There's a time and place for aspirational content, but if that's all that's created, then I feel like it's hard for like maybe the new cyclist to kind of engage with that and be like, whoa, that looks like Red Bull Rampage to me. I can't even like begin to understand that. So I feel like there has to be kind of like an array different skill levels like presented in,
Yeah.
in bike marketing.
I think that for a lot of people starting out, like kind of what bike you're on to the trail that you're on can
Right.
like increase like just pure enjoyment and fun of like riding your bike. And so
well, maybe
sometimes these things are sold as like, go out and have like this bike, and this bike will like let you have like this epic adventure, when
Right.
like that bike might not be right for your local trails, or like
Right.
you don't need that, or there's like that person rides a full suspension bike because they are used to doing these certain things, but maybe to build the technical skill, having a hardtail might help you
Right.
kind of acclimate to this style of riding and build up like a skill level that then you could have fun on a full suspension. But just going straight to something, I don't know.
Right. Or maybe not like framing like the, you know, the hardcore epic, you know, Red Bull Rampage as like, you know, that should be like a reasonable goal for anyone. You know, because I mean, maybe it's a case that like when we see this stuff that's like too epic, what it's really selling is like it's selling more bikes to the same people. You know, but it's not broadening the market, you know, which I think like the bike industry needs. Like maybe there needs to be like more just kind of everyman kind of campaigns trying to like grow the market. Like a beginner that sees something that's too outside their comfort zone, like it's kind of cool to watch the same way like a train wreck is cool to watch, but like it doesn't make you want to do it, you know?
That's a tough one, because yeah, I want to see what I can,
Like what the edge of
I kind of want to see what
possibility
the
is.
edge of possibility is, and it's. But yeah, I mean, I also think that leads to like one of the things that the epicness leads to, maybe like you're saying, is that you're gonna go down like a Tour de France roadie route in kind of the bikepacking world.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's like kind of what that makes me think of, is that because what you're gonna get is just like cultivating products for a group of people that do really like an extreme version of what people
Right.
want to do. And
I think maybe like the extreme versions of things is what attracts people's attention, but the way that it's actually like actualized in reality is like a little bit more watered down, or a little bit.
You're
Or do
not
you
saying-
disagree?
Are you saying like the riding that like I do is watered? It's a watered
Well,
down
no, it's
version
more practical.
of what-
So maybe like we all look at Lael Wilcox and
Sure,
like
yeah.
J. Peter Berry and get inspired
Yeah.
by like the extreme stuff that they do.
Right.
But like the way that it manifests in our real lives isn't that, but like they have inspired us to get out the door in the first place. I don't know, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that the idea of minimalism and where some of these things push you, the epicness,
Right.
traveling, the idea of like needing to travel a really long ways to like ride your bike. I mean, I sometimes have problems. I mean, I've always had, like, even when I lived in Minneapolis, it was like, let's just ride to where we're gonna ride.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Like, why are we gonna like drive? But then I think it's also hard because I think as you develop your skill set, or you develop a skill in riding bikes, what becomes, like when I first started riding bikes, if you had told me at one point that like it was like right now I'm planning a trip with my 3-year-old, and we're gonna bike like maybe over 300 miles, like
On a cargo bike.
on a cargo bike, and
Right.
there's like all these, and it's like, I would think that's
Topper,
crazy.
you're too epic.
Yeah, like I would have
Leave.
been like, what are you thinking? Like, but for me now, like that doesn't cause me
Right.
like almost any stress. Like I'm kind of like, oh, I can handle all of these different
Right.
elements. Like, but that's like what's tough is like, when has like, as like marketing, do you market to the beginner who's like, or to the inexperienced? And it's like, should that be certain brands doing that? And there's like other brands that get to be like the cool kids,
Be the epic kid.
be the epic kids. Like I don't know, because it's like they're
I mean, I agree. You have to speak to all levels, right? But like, I think overarchingly, it's like to the extreme is the messaging that we're getting.
Oh, sure.
So I'm not saying I'm not saying that epic marketing is like inherently terrible. It's like,
Oh, right.
it's just sometimes that's all there is, you know? Like when you think of like car commercials, yes, you see those stupid car commercials of people like, you know, ripping around corners, but you also see car commercials of like the mom loading the kids and like doing the groceries.
Sure.
So like, you know, if we look at car marketing, it's like the whole strata. It's not just like everyone's riding NASCAR all the time. Because I mean, okay, look, let's be honest here. Bikes are already like a strange, like fringe thing in mainstream society. And then to like,
why didn't you stop riding your bike?
yeah, when you were like 8.
Right.
But then to like kind of, further alienate us from like the general public even more, that's not, I feel like that's not doing any good.
I mean, it's weird because it's like, I think if you're trying to make bikes seem sexy, do bikes not need to be sexy? That's the thing, like maybe bikes should be less sexy.
Your bike is like a toaster oven, people.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I think that there's something to be said for like...
I do feel like, bike packing as we know it now has made, bike touring appealing again, or bike travel, because it was like pushing the extreme.
I'm just really excited to see how you're gonna edit this segment together.
I have no idea. Yeah, our bikes to epic and then cut to end. So I don't know, open-ended question. Is bike marketing too epic? Or, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah. Send us a video of you riding your bike with a drone following you.
Yeah, on your commute.
So that we on your commute, so that we...
getting some groceries. I want to see a drone shot of someone getting some groceries.
So, this week,
social media.
The WTF Bike Explorers have been promoting some of their stuff. Friends on Bikes, which is a different group, but they're kind of...
There's some crossover.
Some crossover there. They've seemed like they've been promoting a lot of interesting things happening in kind of the Pacific Northwest, Portland, Seattle.
So they're on Instagram, so check out WTF Bike Explorers and Friends on Bikes.
But also
be on the screen.
And also just like, I think that this time of year, go to your local bike shop, check their Facebook or Instagram, because they probably have some interesting, fun ride happening, and people are starting to get organized again.
So my social media recommendations for this. Wow, it sounds so
all right,
strange.
those heavy pours, heavy pours are kicking in now.
Topper's doing me
At
in.
the end.
my recommendations for what's interesting on the internet. Those are primarily Instagram accounts. I'm actually going to recommend 2 YouTube accounts.
To YouTube.
2 YouTube accounts.
All right. So when you're done watching this,
so one of my favorite channels, I think you'll actually like this, is a vegan cyclist. Have you stumbled on him?
No.
So there's this guy, he's vegan clearly, and he's a cyclist.
It's not me.
Not it's not Topper.
There's somebody else out there.
He lives around like Bass Lake, Northern California, around Yosemite. And what I like about his channel is he's a roadie, right? Which is strange. But he's like the most kind of like unpretentious roadie about being a roadie and being a vegan. Like he makes everything like super approachable.
Two hard things.
I know, yeah.
That are hard to be approachable about.
Yeah.
Being a roadie, being vegan.
But that's why I appreciate his channel. It's like 2 things that I am totally not, but like I'm kind of like, okay, tell me about it. He does such a great job at like storytelling. And the other YouTube channel I'm going to recommend, which you should know about, is Whiskey Vault.
Whiskey Vault.
So if you guys actually want like pretty good like whiskey reviews in a hilarious, unpretentious way, definitely check out Whiskey Vault. They're totally an inspiration for this show. It's like I saw a couple of their episodes and I was like, whoa, there's nothing like that for biking. We should do something like that. So definitely check them out. Until next time, ride bikes,
travel,
do good, and stay supple. Cheers.
Cheers.